Hey friends, this is Eric Malzone, and I'm going to do something I don't usually do, which is sit here and talk solo into a microphone and a camera. I usually do interviews. That's what I love to do. I've been doing it for 9 years, maybe more, but we'll get into that in a second. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm slightly irritated. No, I'm frustrated. It's really easy for people to take shots at companies like Peloton. First and foremost, a lot of people are armchair quarterbacking. Have they ever run a company of that size? No, no. Have they ever rode a fitness company through a once in a lifetime pandemic? Absolutely not. So it's easy. It's easy to take shots, right? But I'm here to defend Peloton. Now, why does my opinion matter? Well, I've been almost 20 years in the fitness industry. You could say I'm an insider. I've coached thousands of people. I have owned multiple gyms. I know what it takes to operate them successfully and not so successfully at times. I know what it's like to sell them. I've worked in multiple startups on the tech side within the industry, but probably most relevant to this is for 9 years, I've been hosting the Future of Fitness podcast, and I have interviewed across all platforms, probably over 1,000 now of fitness industry leaders. And specifically every quarter with some co-hosts of mine and friends, Juliet Storette and Alex Alaministianu, we do a deep dive into the quarterly earnings of public companies within our sector. So I've been following Peloton very closely for many years. Now, here's the thing. This isn't really a story about Peloton, okay? This is a story about connected fitness as a category. So Peloton, Tonal, Mirror, you name it. There was a bunch of them that popped up and investors went bananas over it because we didn't know in the pandemic, right? We didn't know what was going on. The only thing Peloton did wrong is they were the best at it. They did the best job of building the brand. They got into the most households. They had the most revenue. Now, yes, okay, if you look at their stock, it's 95% down from 5 years ago. I'm not going to sit here and glaze over that and say that's not a big deal. It is. But I'm also here to say that I think they're actually doing a pretty darn good job nowadays. And it's worth noting that they should have some credit. So we're going to take a deep dive into this. I'm going to lay out some of my arguments, and I hope I can change your mind because overall, I am number one, an advocate. I am a fan, and I am a student of the fitness and wellness industry. So I'm here to defend it. Hope you like it. So let's go back to circa 2020. Pandemic was just getting going. There was panic in the streets. We didn't know what was going on, right? People were saying 10% of our population was going to die. It was terrible. Now the fitness industry got hit especially hard. Gyms got shut down. People were saying things like the fitness industry's dead. Gyms are never going to come back. Turns out they were wrong. Gyms are booming, but it was a very, very uncertain time for our industry. And home fitness hardware wasn't a side bet anymore, right? It became the thing. So basically, a lot of uneducated investors with big checks came into the industry, specifically connected fitness hardware. And what I mean by that is interactive at home equipment specifically. And they're cutting big checks. They didn't really know the industry, but they saw this opportunity and they wanted it all in, right? So there was a lot of money floating around this sector as opposed to the gym industry, which was just on life support. Now, Peloton, Tonal, a bunch of other these companies rode a wave, and Peloton simply had the best product, right? They had the cleared audience, they executed better than anyone else, and they did a great job. But because they were the biggest and the best, they became the poster child for both what the story looked like as far as being genius and also being broken. So my point, the praise and the hate were never really about how well Peloton ran their business. It was about how much people still believed in that whole home fitness story at the time. And that's a critical way to look at this as we start to digest how this whole thing unfolded. Okay, now let's go back to 2019, the year that Peloton had their IPO. So it was $29 a share. They had 500,000 subscribers, 500,000 subscribers, and this is pre-COVID. Then COVID hit, right? This thing becomes an absolute rocket ship. They go from subscribers go up 6x to 3 million subs in 4 years. Quarter's throwing off $100 million in EBITDA. Stock hits $170. They didn't even have to market. They didn't have to market a thing. That was never a marketing effort. It's incredible. Demand was outrunning what they could actually ship out. So the point I'm trying to hammer here is this was never, ever a normal growth curve, right? It was a once in a lifetime demand shock that I hope we never, ever see again in a category that was never built to sustain that. And that includes Peloton. Okay, now I'm going to go to roughly November 2023. So this is one of the first times really started to cover this in depth. It's the post-COVID hangover. right? The stock craters from $170 at its height down towards single digits, called kind of the scattershot era. They were just trying things, right? And they're just throwing darts, hoping something sticks. So they go a $6,000 treadmill that really no one had room for. The abandoned Amazon and Dick's retail push, $75 million a quarter on R&D, $75 million a quarter, $100 million a year music rights deal. University of Michigan and Liverpool FC, they tie in. Barry McCarthy comes in as the CEO and inherits a whole company built around assumptions that only could be true and make sense during COVID. Now, in that same episode, I remember we were talking about Peloton's own CEO getting dismissed with no explanations at all that fall. Their stock craters, then recovers once the drama settles. Good reminder that this wasn't just a Peloton problem. The whole category was getting shaken up at the same time. Okay, so now let's go back to July 29th, 2024 with the quarterly report I did with Alex and Juliet. There was no permanent CEO at Peloton at this time. We called it the ghost ship on the show, I believe was the exact term, ghost ship. Even without a permanent CEO, they're starting to make smart, focused moves. They're doubling down on product and content. They're making a business to business B2B push into Hyatt hotel locations. And they're leaning into what actually works instead of just throwing darts like we talked about in the previous segment. It's the first real flicker of hope on the show that we have for Peloton. And I think at all time, we're all still fans of Peloton, right? We want to see him make it. The pivot finally starts to make sense instead of just feeling like they're changing direction every quarter. There was always something new going on, but it looked like they actually had some clear direction, but they didn't have a leader. And it's worth noting at this time as well that Exponential Fitness, if you follow them, that's a whole nother story. Maybe I'll talk about later, but they are a large boutique franchise conglomerate. So multiple brands from yoga to Pilates to stretch to a bunch of different things, very unique in the marketplace. But their stock went from $78 to $19 around the same time, purely on a new CEO appointment. No new information, just confidence in leadership. So this shows how these companies live and die on who's actually in the corner office. Okay, so now let's go back to the report we released on December 1st, 2024. There's a new CEO announced, Peter Stern. So his background, Ford, Apple, and Time Warner Cable. He also co-founded Apple Fitness Plus. So this guy is a subscription guy. He understands subs. He's not a traditional fitness industry retread. So first quarter under him, the stock pops, even though they're still losing money because EBITDA went up over 1,000% year over year. That's from 9 million to 115 million. That's almost entirely cost cutting. So cutting marketing in half, tens of millions out of R&D and payroll. Now, Alex, who, by the way, is the former CEO of Town Sports International, very experienced person, another student in the industry and investor as well. His read at the time was, don't credit the new CEO yet. This is a bloat story, not a turnaround story. The real question left hanging is revenue and membership are flatlined. So where does the growth actually come from? And that is probably the most fundamental shift for Peloton. They went from a hyper growth company to, can we make this a sustainable business? Small, honest wins in the same report. So a Costco hardware partnership on the way. That's big. A TrueMed deal giving members access to HSA and FSA dollars. So little things are starting to tweak, but fundamentally, that's still the story. Can they go from growth to sustainability? Will they ever be a growth company again? Okay, so the next stop on this journey brings us to May 30th, 2025, the quarterly report that we published on that date. Revenue down 13% year over year to 586 million, but the net loss improved from 167 million down to 48 million. Things are starting to look good. Subscription revenue actually went up 5% to 445 million, even while hardware revenue fell 39%. Proof that membership base was the real asset the entire time, not the equipment. 5 straight quarters of positive free cash flow. The price still sitting at $44 a month. That's been untouched for years, by the way. They didn't touch the pricing for many years, meaning there's pricing power nobody's quite used yet. My line here is they got their financial house in order before they figured out how to grow again. And I think that order really, really matters and probably a sign of solid management. All right, here we go. It is December 2nd now, 2025. The revenue is still down 6% to 551 million. The decline's still there. It's just very narrow now. It's narrower. First price increase in years. They went from $44 to $49.99. effective October 1st that year, and it barely moved churn. It barely made people cancel at all. So it's real proof of pricing power in a very loyal base. And they started making more small, inexpensive, focused bets instead of wide scattershot ones, right? So a breathwork app acquisition for the mental fitness angle, an injury prevention partnership with a hospital for special surgery, and the launch of Peloton IQ. So that was their AI personalization feature. The thing I noticed during this segment that when we released on that date back in December 2025, was that we all agreed. Now, totally anecdotal, but it's been a very long time, I said, since I heard someone say, I just got a Peloton. So the cultural moment is over. That door has shut. But that's a marketing problem, right? It's not a balance sheet problem. Okay, so we're catching up. Now it's March 21st, 2026. We're into this year. Net loss narrows a lot here, from 92 million down to 38.85 million. 92 down to 38. Net debt down 52%. Peloton IQ has now rolled out. That's their AI member experience application, but they rolled it out to the entire member base, and about half of active members used it in the first quarter it was available. So the same report stated that there is a wave of leadership turnover across the category, right? Including Tonal, which is going to set up some comparisons I'm going to make very soon. Okay, so we're almost caught up. This report was published in June 18th, 2026. This is the most recent one. Here's the number that actually matters. Revenue is up 1% year over year to 663.1 million. 0.1 million is really important. It's the first growth quarter since Q4 of 2024. Adjusted EBITDA is up 41%, free cash flow up 59% to 151 million, and net income actually positive, right? They picked up Scope. It's a connected Pilates reformer, which is priced around $8,000. This is their next adjacent bet. Now, Pilates, by the way, is very hot. I don't know if anyone chased this, but it's incredible. Whenever I think it's going to start not being so hot, it just keeps climbing, and people love Pilates. All I can say. They're also pushing into hotels, universities, and gyms with branded equipment. The full year guidance got raised, right? So this is the freshest data point I have. So it's the strongest note to end this number section on, but it's very positive so far. Sustainable? We'll find out. Okay, so nobody else in this category pulled this off, right? This is going to circle back to the point I made at the top. Peloton actually dealt with this extremely well. Now, I sat down with Darren McDonald, who was running Tonal at the time, T-O-N-A. Now, first of all, I love Tonal. I have one. I think it's a great piece of hardware. It's a great device. I love the technology within there. I'm very confident in Tonal, but they have the same problems as Peloton, right? And when I sat down with Darren, turns out he was pretty close to the Peloton story from the start. His wife actually worked there, and he watched the founders take that company all the way up and then all the way back down before he took over the Tonal job himself. So he went in eyes wide open, right? He even told me straight up that categories in connected fitness go in and out of favor, that a company can be huge and then just fall out of style. That's just the way it goes. So he understood all this going in, but yet to the same point, he's no longer the CEO. Todd Barty took over. Darren was there for 17 months. So the guy who saw the shakeout coming still wasn't able to steer his own company through it. And when I've talked to Darren, he's very competent. He's a very smart man, very driven, all those things. It was just a very, very difficult task. So no turnaround story like Peloton's out of Tonal, no comparable financial discipline. And that's also taken into play that like strength is really big right now. Cardio is still popular, right? Which is Peloton's a straight up cardio piece of equipment. Tonal is strength, smart strength. And even with that, we're not too sure where Tonal is right now. So no comparable financial discipline, same starting conditions, same category headwinds, completely different outcome. That story has still been written. But my point is that the guy who called out the shakeout coming still couldn't keep his own seat through it. That tells me the whole category shifted under everyone's feet, and Peloton's the one that actually seems to be adapting very well. And this, my friends, is my final thought. This was never really a story about Peloton. It was a test of whether pandemic era home fitness was a permanent shift or just a moment in time, right? And it turns out it was just a moment in time, a very strange, weird moment in time. And the real question was never, can they keep growing at COVID rates? It was, can they be the company that handles the come down better than anyone else in their space. And I hope I just made an argument that I believe they are. Losses are shrinking, debt way down, real cash flow, low churn, and actual disciplined bets instead of just throwing darts at a board. They may never be a 10 million member growth stock again, right? I don't think those projections are going to be coming at them anytime soon. And the category will definitely, most likely, hopefully, never look like 2021 again either, because that type of environment would have to come back. I don't think we want that. But isn't a profitable, stable, iconic brand with 2.6 million loyal subscribers, one that outlasted and out executed every other company in this space, a win? I say yes, but I want to hear from you. So, does being the best company left in a shrinking category count as a comeback, or does Wall Street need the whole category to grow again before anyone gets any credit at all? Please go back and look at all these quarterly breakdowns. I have newsletters. You can get the full episodes. It's all there for you if you're really interested in this stuff. I think it's very interesting. And I appreciate you sticking with me today and listening. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments.